All right, hello again. So, remember how I said I was going to try and look less homeless than I did last time? Well, apparently I lied. Unless you take from the fact that I'm wearing a house coat that I have a home. But anyway, here we are. So, today I want to talk about begin Act 2 and just deal with the first two scenes of that act. So I'm going to read the summary, which is wholly insufficient, I think, and I'm going to talk about it, hopefully not at too much length, but anyways. The witches have disturbed Banquo as well as Macbeth. As he crosses the courtyard of Macbeth's castle, he hears a noise and calls for his sword. This suggests tension, for he should not need a sword in a friend's home. Macbeth also shows signs of stress, for he speaks few words in his replies to Banquo. So Banquo begins the scene by saying, "There's husbandry in heaven, their candles are all out." So it's a particularly dark night, as both Macbeth and Lady Macbeth had asked for, right? Macbeth says, "Stars hide your fires," and Lady Macbeth had said, "Come, thick night, and pall thee in the dunnest smoke of hell." So Banquo says, "There's husbandry in heaven, their candles are all out," right? So the stars are not shining because heaven is being cheap. In any case, we also meet Fleance, Banquo's son, who is helping his father as they prepare to get ready for bed. Right. So, Macbeth is living in a nightmare, but although he is first alarmed by the dagger his imagination creates, he seems later to enjoy the horror of the moment. The last lines of his scene even show a grim humor. "The bell invites me. Hear it not, Duncan, for it is a knell that summons thee to heaven or to hell." Right, so that's all they said. There's a lot going on in this scene. So Macbeth and Banquo have a brief exchange in which Banquo mentions that he's been thinking about these witches. And Macbeth lies, saying that he thinks not of them. But maybe we'll talk about it at a certain point. Now, Macbeth also starts putting out feelers in terms of whether or not he can, Banquo will be on his side when the time comes. He says, "If you shall cleave to my consent when 'tis, it will make honor for you," which suggests that, when the time comes, if you're on my side, that'll go well for you. And he says, "Well, so I lose none in seeking to augment it, but still keep of my bosom franchise and allegiance clear, I shall be counseled." So Banquo is essentially saying that, yeah, I'll listen, but, I got a king already. So in any case, they just agree to talk about it later, and Banquo heads off to bed, and Macbeth starts heading towards Duncan's bedroom and sees this dagger floating in front of him. And, to him it appears real, although he reaches out to grab it and can't get a hold of it. Right? And he says, "Art thou but a dagger of the mind, a false creation proceeding from the heat oppressed brain?" So he wonders if he has a fever. He also says, "Mine eyes are made the fools of the other senses, or else worth all the rest." Perhaps that his eyes are either being fooled or they're perceiving something that none of the rest of his body is able to perceive. So he's being particularly perceptive. He's not sure. In any case, or it could simply be the fact that he is disturbed by what he's about to do. In any case, and then he looks again and he sees the dagger and it's still there and there's blood on it. And so it seems to be suggesting that it symbolizes the murder that he's about to commit, and then it's pointing towards Duncan's bedroom. And then, of course, Macbeth comments on how dark it is and how sort of horrible this moment is going to be, but he proceeds. And so by the end of the scene, we're to assume that, in fact, Macbeth has headed off to kill Duncan. And the assumption is that between Act 2, Scene 1 and Act 2, Scene 2, Macbeth is off murdering Duncan. Lady Macbeth enters in Scene 2. She's kind of tense. And so I'll read the summary for you here. It says, "Lady Macbeth is as tense as her husband, and she has been drinking to give herself courage. Her speech is jerky, for she reacts to every sound, and when her husband comes from the king's room, his hands red with Duncan's blood, she greets him with relief and pride. my husband. He has now proved himself in her eyes to be a man. Macbeth slowly awakens from the nightmare he has been living and realizes what the terrible crime he has committed. He speaks of the real sounds he has heard, and then of a voice that cried, "Sleep no more, Macbeth hath murdered sleep." This ban will be carried out, and never again will Macbeth or his wife have any rest, and from time to time throughout the play they will comment on their weariness and lack of refreshing sleep. For the present, however, Lady Macbeth again takes charge of the situation. Early in the scene, she revealed some natural womanly feelings when she confessed that she could not murder Duncan herself because he resembled my father as he slept. But now she speaks a line which shows terrifyingly how little she thinks of the guilt that she shares with her husband. "A little water clears us of this deed." Now, a couple of observations to make. You'll notice, of course, that Lady Macbeth, simply didn't commit the murder herself. Whether or not, Shakespeare is being sexist and suggesting that women don't have that in them. The other possibility is simply that Lady Macbeth has misrepresented her own power, in the sense that here's a woman who said that she could pluck a baby from her nipple and smash its brains out if she had promised to do so, who can't simply kill one old man, right? Had he not resembled my father as he slept, I had done it, right? That comes off as an excuse, right? Oh, I would have done it, but he looked like my father. Well, you're certainly not the woman that you made yourself out to be in Act 1. In any case, Macbeth comes in, and he's appalled by what he's done, and she upbraids him for his weakness. In any case, he utters some pretty interesting lines. One of them is that his hands will never be clean of this deed. I will read that in fact, if he were to wash his hands in the sea, they would make the sea red rather than cleaning his hands, which we know to be hyperbole, right? Literary term for exaggeration for dramatic effect. So he's exaggerating to show how terrible he feels about the deed. Right? He says, "Will all great Neptune's oceans wash this blood clean from my hands? No, this my hand will rather the multitudinous seas incarnadine, making the green one red." Right. So that's the substance of what he's saying, and as well as the gist of it. In any case, they have they wash their hands and prepare to go to bed when they hear a knocking at the gate, and the assumption is the knocking is whoever has come to wake up Duncan after his sleep. So they head off and prepare themselves to look like they've been sleeping. All right. Well, thanks for watching. Off the table, Keycat.